as an employment lawyer, taking those in turn, well, let's start with the writing. The job of a lawyer is first and foremost about being a wordsmith. So you need to be able to write with absolute precision. So in the work that I do, I need to be able to convey very complicated legal concepts in a way which is readily understandable to the layperson. So using succinct, plain English. And I also need to be able to deploy a range of writing styles. So if I'm doing legal drafting, that requires a very formal, precise form of writing. And I need to ensure that I'm using correct punctuation in my legal drafting to ensure that I meet my client's objectives. By contrast, if I'm writing for the, if I'm using my writing to build a rapport and a relationship with a client who might be at a distance from me, that's very common now, that you're building a relationship with somebody by email and phone, I'll deploy a very different style of writing. So it needs to be much more informal, friendlier, warmer. So yeah, that's a different type of writing I do. And then a third type of writing I might do is persuasive writing. So if I'm, for example, writing a proposal to try and win a new client or win a new piece of work from an existing client, my proposal will need to be very persuasive and it will need to sell my skills and experience. So that's, just illustrating the point that as a lawyer, you really, really need to be a very accomplished writer and able to write clearly, succinctly, and in a variety of different styles. Reading, whether you're a solicitor or a barrister, you will need to be very adept at reading large quantities of documentation, and also you need to be adept at reading very complicated legal text. So that could be statutes and statutory instruments, or it could be very lengthy legal judgments. So you do need to be able to speed read, you need to be able to read large volumes of text, very complicated text, you need to be able to digest it very quickly, analyse it, relay it to your client. So you need to be a very accomplished reader. Arithmetic, instinctively you might struggle to see why an employment lawyer needs to have a good grasp of arithmetic or basic maths. I use maths in a variety of ways in my job. So in my client-facing role, I need to be able to do sometimes basic, but sometimes quite complicated calculations for my client. So if, for example, I'm advising an employer who's in dispute with an employee, and we need to quantify the value of the claim. Let's say the individual's been dismissed, and they're, bringing proceedings in the tribunal for unfair dismissal. I'll need to calculate for the client what the potential exposure is, and that could be quite straightforward. It's 6 months loss of salary plus 6 months loss of pension plus 6 months loss of benefits, and we put a value on those. It can get a bit more complicated because, for example, I might need to gross up the employee's net loss of earnings because whatever sum is awarded to the employee by a tribunal, they will then pay tax on. So you have to gross up the net loss to come up with a gross figure. So in my client-facing role, I have to do both basic and more complicated maths. And then because I'm now running my own law firm, I need to be mathematically proficient to run my business. So at its simplest, if I'm invoicing a client, I need to make sure that I'm invoicing them for the correct fee based on my hourly rate and the amount of time I've spent. I need to make sure I'm adding the correct amount of VAT. So just a grasp of percentages. It is simple maths, but you need to be proficient. And then in terms of running my own firm, I need to make sure that I'm exercising discipline and rigour in running my financial affairs or the financial affairs of my firm, so that I'm rigorous in my bookkeeping, that I'm undertaking checks and balances, I'm reconciling my bank statements, I'm making sure that I'm accounting to the revenue for the right amount of VAT and income tax. So you do need to make sure, if you want a career in law, that you've got a good command of the English language and you're an accomplished writer, that you're comfortable reading and you can speed read, manage large volumes of written material, digest it, and that you have at least a good basic grasp of maths. And then to reading, writing and arithmetic, in my blog I added that you need to be IT proficient. And I don't mean by that you need to be able to, that you need to be a computer programmer. I mean you need to be able to operate in a world in which information technology is ubiquitous. So when I joined a law firm 15 years ago, computers had only relatively recently been introduced to the firm, and there were a good number of very senior partners who were running very, very successful practices while being pretty computer illiterate or completely computer illiterate. There were senior partners who used to dictate emails to their secretaries. That kind of, you just can't build a successful career anymore without being computer literate. So in my job, I use, Microsoft Office, I use Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook on a regular basis, and you need to have a minimal level of IT proficiency. I actually taught myself to touch type when I was a student, and that's been one of the best things I did. So yes, if I was advising somebody who wished to pursue a career in law, I would say make sure that when you complete your formal education, you can read well, you can write well, you've got a good grasp of basic arithmetic, and you are computer literate.